Romeo, deny thy father and deny thy name. Or to be or not to be. Whether it's nobler in the minds of man to withstand, blah, blah, blah. Yeah? None of these moving kind of eloquence. Rather, it's to do with the structural features of language. And this is a key point here, because one of the claims that people have, they say, no, the Quran is a subjective literary miracle because it's about the way you appreciate it. It's not about appreciation of eloquence and rhetoric here. This argument is about the structural features of the Arabic language. For example, Shakespeare, or Sheikh Zabur, he used to express his language in the iambic pentameter. This is what I mean by structure. And the iambic pentameter was emulated by many other English literatures at the time. So his structural features of the language were not unique. They were common. But the Quran de-scoped the Arabic language. It's not prose, which prose can be split into two further categories, sajj and mursal, which basically means rhyme prose and straightforward speech. And it's not poetry, and the poetic structures, those poetic rhythmical patterns in the Arabic language are around 16. And none of these rhythmical patterns can be applied to the Quranic discourse. So it transcends any type of structural feature known in the Arabic language. So it de-scopes the Arabic language itself. It's a unique literary form. This is why the prominent Egyptian literator, Taha Hussein, he said, but you know the Quran is not prose and that is not verse. It is rather the Quran and it cannot be called by any other name but this. Another aspect that makes the Quran a unique literary discourse is something called a unique linguistic genre. What this means is that the Quran combines cohesive elements of language and rhetorical elements of language in such a way that render it quite unique and miraculous. I'm not going to give you examples, I don't want to bore you with technical aspects, but just to give you that kind of understanding. Also, we believe that the Quran is the peak of eloquence. And this is not a subjective reality. Because if you study eloquence in any tradition, English, Arabic, Greek, you come to the conclusion that there are certain devices that intend to please and persuade. Whether they fulfill the job or not is another discussion, but they do intend to please and persuade. The Quran has more of these than any other text. It's a sea of rhetoric. When we go into the most shortest chapter in the Quran, which is only 3 lines long, Al-Kawthar, Surah Al-Kawthar, the abundance, we see only in 10 words, there's around 16 to 17 rhetorical and eloquent devices. Something we could discuss in the Q&A if you want. And it is no wonder the famous British translator, Foster Fitzgerald Arbuthnot, who was also a notable Orientalist, he said, and that though several attempts have been made to produce a work to it as equal as eloquent writing is concerned, none has yet succeeded. And Professor Bruce Lawrence from Duke University, he says, the Quran as tangible signs, the verses of the Quran as tangible signs are expressive of an inexhaustible truth. They signify meaning, labeling meaning, light upon light, miracle after miracle. Now let's think about this. How does the Quran's inimitability, uniqueness, people not being able to emulate the Quran with regards to the linguistic structure, genre, and features of the Quran, render it a miracle? Well, let's go back to our definition of miracle. It's an event that lies outside the productive capacity of nature. So in light of the Arabic language, the Quran is a literary event that lies outside the productive capacity of the Arabic language. Why? Because when we go to the Arabic language, we go to the finite 28 letters. We go to the finite grammatical rules. We go to the finite words, and we exhaust every single possibility. We cannot create the structural feature of the Quran. Think about what I just said. We exhaust every single logical possibility of grammar, sound, meaning, words, letters in the Arabic language, but we cannot produce the structural features of the Quran. This means we can't use a naturalistic explanation to fulfill the question of inquiry here. We must be seeking supernatural explanations because we've gone to the natural world, exhausted it, and yet we can't find an answer. Someone may claim, give us another 10 years. Well, first and foremost, we've had 1400 years. And secondly, the best people who could change the Quran with the time of revelation, the Quraysh. They were best at expressing themselves in the Arabic tongue, and they failed too. Today's Arab could never do it. Especially when there's been this phenomenon of linguistic degeneration has occurred. And just to put this in simple terms, someone tell me how to say phone in Arabic.
هاتف.
What's another way?
Telephone.
Telephone. Yeah. Linguistic degeneration. Okay? And also, I would argue that you're never going to get another letter of the Arabic language, because the Arabic language is quite unique, it's been preserved. You're never going to get the 30th letter of the Arabic language, or the 50th letter of the Arabic language. You're not. So you've already exhausted all possibilities. So from our definition, it is a linguistic miracle. Also, brothers and sisters and friends, you don't have to know anything about the Arabic language. Nothing. You don't even know how to even recognize an Arabic letter. You don't even have to recognize an Arab. Okay? You don't have to know nothing about Arabic. You just have to use your logic. And we're all logicians here. We like to think coherently. This is the nature of the student, especially if one attends Bristol University. I'm sorry. I've been on trainings all week. Especially if you go to Bristol University. So, all we have to do is use logical deduction. Now let me just try to explain what this means. I want you to put your hand up if you believe that Greece exists. Who believes Greece exists? It's part of the earth, the globe. Okay, good. The majority of us. Let me ask you another question. Put your hand up who's been to Greece. 2 people. Okay. Who's eaten Greek food before? In Greece. Who's spoken to a Greek person before? In Greece. But we all believe Greece exists, right? But we've never been there. We've never spoken to people in Greece. We've never had Greek food in Greece. Well, someone say, well, I've seen a Greek person, he's come to my class when we're doing philosophy, for example. Well, that doesn't mean Greece exists. If I came to you and I said, I'm from the planet Fufula. I'm a Fufulonian. You must believe in me. Yeah? That's not proof. Oh, but I can see it on the map. Okay, so if I drew a map for you, and then drew Greece, or drew some kind of, oh, this is the area on planet Fufula called Fufulagi. Okay? Does that mean it's true because I just presented it to you? But yet you all are convinced that Greece exists. I wonder why. You have absolutely no proof for it, apart from secondary sources. You guys are stupid. I'm only kidding. The reason we believe in this is because naturally human beings have a process of thinking which we call in the Arabic terminology mutawatir. Mutawatir reporting, recurrent reporting. In Professor Cody's discussion, he calls it testimony. If there's mass testimony on something for different chains of narration at different times and places, only a madman would assume they're wrong. Only a madman would assume they're wrong because there's a recurrent testimony throughout generations, times and places. This is why we believe the world is round. This is precisely the reason why we believe the world is round. No one's felt the world before. He's got the whole world in his hand. Yeah. We've never felt the world before. We've never gone over to Australia and had a really bad headache. That's really bad science, isn't But you get my point. But yet we believe in this because it's recurrent reporting, it's testimony. We haven't even seen the physical, mathematical, geographical calculations to prove the world is round. Someone will say, well, we could stand on the top of a highest mountain and see the curvature of the earth. This is all rubbish, because if you do that, you probably die from lack of oxygen anyway. But the point is, we believe in these things. We have yaqeen, we have conviction in these things because of testimony. This is how we can show the Quran is a miraculous book, even though we haven't even read or understood anything about Arabic. Because we use logical deduction. We take a university accepted statement, just like Brisoc exists, just like the world is round. We take a university accepted statement, and from that, draw logical conclusions. Well, the university accepted statement in this context is that the Quran has never been successfully challenged by a human being for over 1400 years. They have descoped the Arabic language. They have exhausted the 28 letters and the finite grammatical rules, but yet have not produced the structural features of the Quran and the linguistic nature of the Quran. That's a university accepted statement. Go to SOAS, University in London, the School of Oriental African Studies. Ask your Arabist friends here. They'll give you this. Even when you go to the Christian Arabs in Egypt, the Coptics, they would even say this is a peak of eloquence. This cannot be matched by any human being. And even the best placed people to understand the Quran, like the scholars, they have agreed on this, Western and Eastern. For example, Professor Dr. Martin Zamet from the Dutch University, he said, the Quran is the most eminent written manifestation of the Arabic language. So if this is true, that is a universally accepted statement, no one has been able to match the Quran, then let's draw logical conclusions. Let's do it together. Let's do it together, okay? Number one, could it have been produced by an Arab? Who could believe in this? You say yes, it could be produced by an Arab. Yes, please. Yes, you say yes, but then tell me why.
Why not? It's in Arabic.
Okay, good. It's in Arabic, so why not? Well, let's see why not. First and foremost, the best people from a social linguistic perspective who were able to challenge the Quran admitted defeat. Said, we can't produce anything like this. The best linguist of the time, which was called Walid ibn al-Mughira, what did he say? He said, by God, this cannot come from a human being. I'm the master of this art. And no one has been able to produce anything like this. And we've had collected throughout generations preserved challenges to the Quran, and upon scrutiny, they have not matched the linguistic and literary reality of the Quranic discourse. So we say, how can it be an Arab? And it can't be today's Arab, as I just mentioned, because at that time, it was more of a homogeneous culture. Now we live in a heterogeneous culture. We have different people having this phenomenon called linguistic borrowing, and other languages have been diluted. Hence, one of the words for phone in Arabic is telephone. Yeah? So, in essence, we have no good reason to believe it came from an Arab. Number two, could it have come from a non-Arab? This is easier. Of course not, because it's an Arabic language. How can it come from a non-Arab? This doesn't make sense at all. Okay, good. Who's next? In our deduction here, who's next? God? No, too early. What about the Prophet himself? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Many Orientalists would claim that he's a genius. And he was better than all the Arabs, therefore he did produce this. Clutching at intellectual straws. Well, there's many reasons why we say that the Quran could have not been produced by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And listen to these reasons. One, the Prophet was an Arab himself. If all Arabs failed, then he failed too, logically. Two, the Prophet ﷺ was not known to have any special rhetorical gifts. He did not even engage in the intellectual warfare of poetry at the time. There used to be this fair where all the poets used to come and they used to have battles with poetry. Just like you have with the MCs today. Move to the group to get your live lead, jump on the mic and start to MC. Oh my God. Bowling through like a bandolier roll, shoot you two like a hero. Don't give up my day job, yeah? So, I'm from Hackney, so we used to do this all the time. So, yeah, so